If you're a gun owner in and around Casper or Natrona County, you need to watch this video if you're trying to figure out who is the pro-gun candidate in advance of the August 16 Republican Party primary. Hi guys, Aaron Dorr here with Wyoming Gun Owners. And as you guys know, with the primary coming up, everybody claims to be pro-gun. And this race is no different. Senate District number 29 features incumbent State Senator Drew Perkins versus challenger Bob Ide. Now, the question we're hearing from our members and other gun owners in the area is who's actually pro-gun? Because everybody claims to be pro-gun. It's a primary, and it's Wyoming. Liz Cheney says that she's pro-gun, and she's backed a lot of gun control in Washington, D.C. over the last 2 to 3 years. So how do we know who's pro-gun, and how do we know who we can trust? Those are the questions we're going to answer, guys, in today's video. The way WYGO works is we give the candidates a candidate survey. And that candidate survey gives the candidates a chance to put their views when it comes to your gun rights in writing. It's pretty simple for us. If a candidate won't survey, that means they're trying to hide something. Maybe not every time, but every single time that we've experienced it so far, that's what's going on. And so we look at that plus their record if they've been in office, like Drew Perkins has, to give you guys a deep dive on these candidates. Now, yeah, we're not going to tell you who to vote for. We can't do that. We're going to tell you who the pro-gun champion is, if there is one. And then from there, you can decide who you wish to vote for. Now, sometimes these videos are pretty surface level because we have 2 challengers. We have an open seat. There's not a lot of details. I'm going to tell you right now, this video is different. There's a lot of detail when it comes to Drew Perkins and all the years he has fought to screw over gun owners here in Wyoming. So if you're pressed for time, here's the short version. Bob Ide is 100% pro-gun. He promised in writing to support every bit of our gun rights agenda here in Wyoming. Drew Perkins has been an enemy to gun owners every single year that he has been in office here in Cheyenne. If you've got more time, folks, I'm going to break it down for you in detail. But if you're pressed for time, I wanted to make sure you knew at least that. Now, getting back to Bob Ide, as we mentioned, the candidate survey is an important thing for us to figure out which of these candidates are actually going to put their views on our gun rights in writing. And Bob Ide did that. And what that means is that on the record, in writing, and you can see his survey for yourself on our website, Bob Ide is 100% opposed to the entire gun control agenda being pushed by Republican rhinos, both here in Wyoming and in Washington, D.C. He opposes red flag gun seizures, all sorts. He opposes any attempt to register guns here in Wyoming through universal background checks. Bob Ide is opposed to waiting periods. We've had Republicans sponsor these bills here in Wyoming just in the last 2 years. Bob Ide opposes waiting periods. He's opposed to fixed NICS. If you've been involved in our fight, you know that it was Wyoming gun owners who stopped fixed NICS legislation in 2020. Of course, everybody who filed that bill in the House and Senate was kicked out of office by WYGO members for doing it, but we killed that bill then, and it's going to come back up sometime down the road. And if and when that time ever comes up, Bob Ide has said he'll be a no vote because fixed NICS is mental health gun control, and everybody in Cheyenne knows it. Finally, he's opposed to any attempt to ban our AR-15s or 30-round magazines, all of the rest of that agenda. You can see more of Bob Ide's entire survey on our website. Now that brings up Drew Perkins. Now, if you've ever heard one of our videos or you're watching Tucker Carlson some night and you keep hearing the phrase rhino, 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 and you ask yourself, what does that actually mean? You know, we know it means Republican in name only, but who are they talking about? Here in Wyoming, with Michael Von Flatteren being kicked out of office in 2020, the biggest rhino we have right now in the state capitol today is Drew Perkins. Drew Perkins is a backstabbing weasel. I mean, look at the guy's face. This is a weasel. You can just see it. Who every single year, going back for at least 5 years, has done everything he can to kill and sabotage our gun rights. It's Wyoming, so when they work against your gun rights, as you're about to see, they have to be careful. It's done with amendments. A lot of times it's done in committee. It's done to minimize their fingerprints, but guys, we're going to prove our case to you right now in detail. 2018, everybody knows that WIGO was leading the fight to pass Stand Your Ground law. We were the last state west of the Mississippi that had not enacted Stand Your Ground law. It was absurd. It should have been done years ago. And WIGO was leading that fight, and we were, as a short session, a budget session, so we were low on time. Senate file, let me get the number here for you. Senate file 71 was the bill. We were just about home free on that, and Drew Perkins convenes a meeting with the Rhino cabal here in Cheyenne, and he announces he's going to run a strike after amendment. Now, what that means is he was going to keep the bill number and keep the name of the bill. He was going to gut everything else and put his own language in there. And he did. And by doing that, he killed Stand Your Ground law. It was an absolute kill amendment. It destroyed the entire bill, and he got that done. That was Drew Perkins. Again, it's the Senate File 71. The date was February 27, 2018, and that was his amendment. Now, what Perkins didn't know is that WIGO anticipated his attack. We had a dueling bill, a version of the same bill over in the House. We then, as this bill died because of Drew Perkins, we ran our own bill on the House side instead. We rammed that through. The governor, of course, refused to sign it, but we, by God, passed Stand Your Ground law over the attacks and the best efforts of Drew Perkins, who did all he could do to kill it. Don't take my word for it. Just look it up for yourself. I gave you the date and the bill number. You see, it's that kind of crap. It happens behind closed doors. It happens usually in a committee. And guys like Drew Perkins, they tell themselves, you know what? Nobody's ever going to find out. I can still say I voted for Stand Your Ground law. No one's going to know that I destroyed the bill. I'll just run the amendment, I'll F over gun owners, and no one's going to be the wiser. But we didn't forget, and now you guys know what happened as well. That was 2018. 2019 and 2020, 2 years in a row, America had seen some nasty mass shootings, all of them in gun-free zones. We still have gun-free zones here in Wyoming. We were working our tail off to get rid of deadly gun-free zones, and we almost got it done. And both times, Senate Republican leadership, including Drew Perkins, worked overtime to get enough Republican rhinos to vote with Senate Democrats to kill the bill. I want to be very clear on this. Drew Perkins had a chance to get rid of deadly gun-free zones. And he voted to maintain these, to mandate these, not once, but twice. 2019, this was Senate File 75. The date was January 25, 2019. In 2020, this was also gun-free zone repeal. The date of that vote was February 12, 2020. 2 years in a row, we're trying to get rid of gun-free zones. 2 years in a row, Drew Perkins votes to mandate them here in Wyoming. 2021, last year. Let's paint the scene here. We got Joe Biden in office. We have more gun control bills being filed in a day than we had seen in months in years past. We have executive orders being written around the clock attacking our gun rights. We have international treaties being entered into by this demented, tyrannical president. And so WIGO was working overtime to pass the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Now, in case you don't know, we call it SAPA for short. And what SAPA does very simply is says, this is our state. This is our state. Our Constitution protects our gun rights. Our tax dollars fund our law enforcement. So we can't stop you from having federal authorities enforce federal gun control here in Wyoming, but by goodness, we're not going to let you use Wyoming troopers, deputies, and city cops to enforce gun control. That's what SAPA does. It's patterned after the wonderful SAPA law, which was signed into law in Missouri last year. We ran the identical legislation here in Cheyenne, and Drew Perkins and the rest of these rhinos had a real problem on their hands because they had just watched WIGO members cut the heads off of all of their friends' political careers. Michael Von Flatteren, Dan Kirkbride, Bill Pownell, David Northrup, all of these people and many more got destroyed in the primaries in 2020. They didn't want to run the risk of having the same thing happen to them. So Drew Perkins did exactly what he did 4 years prior on Stand Your Ground law. He worked with rhino leaders. They ran a terrible amendment. It was the Hicks Amendment. Drew Perkins was right there to argue for that amendment and vote for it on the floor, and they destroyed SEPA law in 2021. We needed it badly, and because these guys are so afraid of gun owners, they didn't want to vote no on the bill. Instead, they just killed it by jerking out all of the content and replacing it with trash. That's how Drew Perkins works. He's a weasel, and he did it again in 2021. The bill number, Senate File 81, and the date of the amendment vote was March 24, 2021. Again, don't take me at my word, just Google it, look it up for yourself. And that brings us to this year. Now, you guys all know what happened this year. We have out-of-town, out-of-state gun rights organizations who don't know a damn thing about Wyoming or the members of the legislature. They come in here to run a harmful version of SEPA. This worked out great for Drew Perkins because this year, Drew Perkins voted to kill WIGO's Second Amendment Preservation Act. This is Senate File 87. The date of the vote was February 18, 2022, and Drew Perkins voted to kill SEPA. And then at the last minute, again, fearing the pressure of the primaries, they run this watered-down trash ball version of SEPA that has no teeth, no penalties, no enforcement, no nothing. They pass a toothless old nag. They hold it up and say, see, we passed SEPA. The whole thing is a joke. But as you can see, every single year, going back for years, every time there was a gun bill, Drew Perkins was either a no vote on the floor or he worked and connived to run amendments to weaken and gut and destroy those bills behind closed doors. That is the definition of what it means to be a rhino. That is the definition of what it means to be a part of the swamp. Drew Perkins would run as a Democrat in any other state. Here in Wyoming, he doesn't have that luxury, not if he wants to be elected into office. Every time gun owners hoped he would support them, he was right there to stab us in the back. So guys, if you bump into Bob Ide, thank this man for standing up for gun rights, for putting his views on the record, in writing, and loudly championing the Second Amendment. If you come across Drew Perkins, be sure and talk to him as well. Tell this guy to apologize to gun owners for fighting against our gun rights every single year going back for years here in Cheyenne. And tell him to answer the WIGO Gun Rights Candidate Survey so you know conclusively where he stands on the issues of the day, especially red flag gun seizures. Guys, that's our report in this race. I told you it was going to be detailed, but it's important that you guys know when they all claim to be pro-gun and we have a record like this, it's important you guys know these details, know these bill numbers, and know these dates so you can now help us get the word out to other gun owners. Guys, do that. Share our video on social media, share it by email, and to join our fight today, guys, go to www.joinwygo.com.